Hi, I'm here with Martin Batt today, who is a wildlife photographer and guide from North Devon, and I will be joining him to take the tour across the Tor and Torridge estuary, where we'll visit 4 sites which are really good for birding across the North Devon Biosphere Reserve. This is a prototype test for the Biocultural Heritage Tourism project.
Well, I thought I'd start off with talking about the cameras, because the digital single lens reflex camera, as it's called, is quite a lot more complex than your average iPhone, and it's got a lot of settings that can appear very confusing at first. So I thought we'd run through what you need to know. And first of all, of course, if you're going to photograph wildlife, you need to get close to it, which means you have a fairly big lens. Now this one is a 100 to 400 zoom, which will give you about 10 times magnification, which is roughly what you get on a good pair of binoculars. So I recommend for bird photography anyway, anything between 300 and 400 millimeters. Then you need to think about, well, how are we going to capture these creatures? And the thing about wildlife is that it's constantly moving, even though we might not be absolutely aware that they're moving. Little body movements and fluffing of feathers and so on go on all the time. So you need to capture that movement, and the minimum setting therefore is 1,000th of a second for that, which is quite fast. It's not something that you would normally set in a standard portrait camera. You know, be going for about 100th or something like that. So a 1,000th is just about fast enough to capture movement. But if you can afford a bit more, a 1,600th or 2,000th would be even better. Now when I say afford a bit more, that's because you're limited by the amount of light we've got around. So if we look at today, it's a bit grey, and we're going to be lucky to get 1,000th. So we're very lucky in this part of the North Devon Biosphere, in that we've got a fantastic combined estuary system. We've got the Tor Torridge estuary, and if you look in all the where to birdwatch books, this is one of the best places in North Devon to watch birds. So we're sitting here at Velator Quay, and this itself is a great location for some birds. It's famous for its kingfishers. You often see them sitting on the rigging of the boats. And you also get, at low tide, you sometimes get dippers in the water, and along the edges the common sandpiper is often there too. And then we can go further down southwards towards Horsey Island, the new Devon Wildlife Trust Nature Reserve, which is great for wading birds in the winter. Not so good in the summer, it's a bit bare in the summer, but you get large numbers of shelduck, for example, which is a spectacular bird. We could also look at Broadsands, which is the car park around Horsey Island, and that's very good in migration time. So spring and autumn, you get spotted flycatchers and all sorts of things. Warblers, the sedge warblers and reed warblers. Then we can go along further inland towards Barnstable and stop at Ashford, which is a great place on the river. Again, mud flats, good for waders and waterfowl. Then we go across the bridge past Barnstable and towards Fremington, and Fremington Pill is a really good location because it's a little stream or small river that goes into the main river, and at low tide it dries right out, so that again that leaves loads of mud, and that's become famous for it's a glossy ibis, even better, which has spent several winters there. It seems to come back every year. So that's Fremington Pill, and then just a bit further on we go to Yelland and turn down towards the river, and we've got Rspb Isley Marsh, which is great for things like spoonbills and again more ducks and waders. So we've got lots of locations to go for, depending on where the wind's blowing, where the tide is. So we're going to have a look at them. now at Horsey Island, which is a brand new Devon Wildlife Trust Nature Reserve. It used to be grassland, but now it floods every high tide. We are at a particularly high tide today, tide's going out, so it's an ideal time to come looking for some of the wading birds, and we've just been photographing a little egret, which has become very common here. But you could also see things like shell duck, and as the tide goes out, some waders. But again, the important thing with the camera is to think about lighting and settings in these difficult conditions. The greyer it is, the more you have to worry about the settings you use. Ghostly light. Now down at Ashford on the River Tor, and it's still quite high tide, but already we can see there are birds feeding. There's a couple of oyster catchers over there, and now's a good time to catch them, because as the tide goes out they just get further and further away. So try and time your photography for when you're going to see birds close to, and you won't struggle so much. Voice, there's a teal down there. So we're now on the Fremington Pill, which is a tidal creek that flows into the Tor estuary, and it's a great place for seeing birds quite close up. They seem to be quite habituated to humans, and we can see teal, a little egret, and over there we've just spotted a glossy ibis, which is really a very rare bird for the UK, but this one has been here. If it's the same one, it's been here for at least 3 winters. Should be in Spain somewhere, but it's or France. It's spending its winters here. Here's a classic piece of mud which is full of invertebrates and things like worms and crustaceans, and we've got about 20-25 redshank just feeding away on the mud as the tide goes out. So that's what North Devon's really good for, waders in the winter.